Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. Getting started here a little bit early on Sunday night as the Dallas Mavericks played an early game against the Orlando Magic, came out and absolutely obliterated them. What was the final score? I don't even have it up in front of me.
108-85.
Well, that'll do wonders for the defensive numbers.
It will.
That other voice that you hear is someone you guys all know, Josh Bowe, co-editor over at MavsMoneyball.com. Josh, how you doing?
Doing okay. I like the Sunday early games, especially with the weekends we've had in our personal lives. It always, look, if they're gonna switch the clocks back and mess up our little ones' sleeping schedules, at least get the next game over with. So I'm always appreciative of the 6:30 tip off.
So our good friend and husband to our former editor, Rebecca, his name's John Gennaro. He's a producer over at Yahoo. He actually said, he's like, you and Josh get really excited for these early games, don't you?
Oh,
he's on California, so it's like he's in a great
game's early. Yeah,
he's in a great sports watching zone there. But it's like, what I'm actually worried about is this is like the fourth 6:30 game out of 6 games, and that means I've not looked ahead. Are they playing a bunch of 9:30 p.m. games in April? And am I going to die when we're like at our absolute just nadir of where we're just energy and what we have going for the season? Who knows?
Cross that bridge when we get to it.
That's right. That's right. So like we said, the Dallas Mavericks got their biggest win of the season against a sort of deprived and I would say struggling Orlando Magic team, who's now, they were 3-3 coming into this game, so they're 3-4. They lost Paulo Banchero a couple games ago to an oblique injury. We don't really know what all it is, and he had just come off like a 50-point game, so they've clearly been reeling. But what was going on with the early portion of this game? So I had to listen to it. I didn't get around to the game until about the 6-minute point in the second quarter, and at that point, the Mavericks seemed to have already taken control.
Yeah, it was pretty funny because the game kind of started off like every Mavericks game seemingly has started this season. They were down 15-8 in the opening minutes, and it looked like another game where they were just not with it. It looked like they didn't really learn much lessons from the Houston game, because their offense once again kind of came out and did that thing where they were kind of waiting for the defense to double them like they're used to when Luka gets doubled, and then they kind of get that advantage. And as we've seen, most defenses are cutting that out and playing the Mavericks more straight up because there's been some success there. And the Mavericks kind of played into that kind of ball watching one-on-one, just looked a little sloppy, some turnover. Like they had a lot of turnovers in the first quarter, more than they're accustomed to. I think they finished the game with 18 turnovers, which is a lot for them. They've been
they were the lowest turnover team in the league, I think, before this.
Yeah, and I don't know how many they had in the first quarter right here. I don't have the stats for first quarter, but they did not get off to a good start. They're down 7 in the first couple of minutes, and you're like, all right, here we go again. And then the Magic stopped scoring. Like they literally just stopped scoring. Like they had 18 points with 4:41 left in the first quarter. They had 28 points with 3:30 left in the second quarter. So they went about a full quarter scoring 10 points for the most part in game time. You're going to lose. It doesn't matter how crappy your offense on the other team is. Like that's pretty low. So Orlando's offense was just horrible without Paulo. The Mavericks preyed on it. Not to say that the Mavericks just waltzed into a game and they got this game given to them, but defensively the Magic do not do anything that can threaten this Mavericks defense, and the Mavericks defense has actually been pretty good all season. I mean, even that Houston Rockets game, their defense was okay. They just kept giving up offensive rebounds. So this game, their defense still played well. They controlled the boards, and then they got out in transition because the Magic missed 62 shots.
That's hard.
They missed 62 shots.
Shooting 33% in an NBA game is extraordinarily hard.
And without Paulo, they have nothing. And the Mavericks defense, with the way that they play, which is, they're very aggressive in wanting to cause turnovers, and then they're walling off the paint. The Magic don't have, even with Paulo, they don't really have the 3-point shooting that can bust this Mavericks defense. And the Mavericks just preyed on, they just absolutely swarmed them. They overwhelmed them. They throttled them. I mean, this was about as good as an ass kicking you'll see in the NBA level from a team that's not trying to actively lose games. Like the Magic were a playoff team last year, and the Mavericks like threw them in the garbage can like they were, a lottery team. And it's just like the Magic's weakness against the Mavericks' strength. Like it's just a perfect matchup for the Mavericks. Really, even with Paulo, I think this is like a great matchup for the Mavericks. Just the way they like to play defense and using their size to wall off the paint. The Magic like to bully ball their way with Paulo and even Franz Wagner. They just don't have the dynamicism from their guards to really take advantage of where the Mavericks are weak. And man, the Mavericks just once they got over, like they looked like they kind of just woke up. They didn't wake up to start the game, but once that got out of the way and Orlando just kept missing shots, like it fed the beast so quickly. And then that's when you turned in. Like the game got out of control so fast because again, they were down 15-8 early on. They're down 7. And then you go get a snack and they're up 21 and you're like, wait, what happened? And it was that fast because Orlando's offense was that horrific.
That's really, really something, man. I must have forgotten to post this stream to Twitter because it says we don't have any viewers. So I'm good at this. That's okay. Some of the Twitter views are fake anyways. And the YouTube ones are the ones that we really count for. So that's fine. This is also just kind of a terrible, terrible game.
Good game for the Mavericks, but in terms of like trying to talk about something, yeah.
Well, so okay, last podcast, I spent a fair amount of time like sort of viscerally frustrated in the ways that I get, which is why people either really like or really hate me. By the time I tuned in and was paying attention, you said Luka or the team had kind of done the damage. How was Luka's game tonight, and what did you think about how he played, at least offensively? Because defensively, by the time I tuned in, he's kind of laughing and didn't seem to give a shit.
Yeah. So funny enough, you would have hated the first like 4 or 5 possessions because it was very much he was very indecisive in the pick and roll. He had a couple turnovers. He missed some shots in the paint. He took a couple of threes early that didn't go in. And it really felt like a continuation of the first quarter from the Houston game. So you would have been fucking pissed if you watched the first 6 minutes of the game. And then when they were able to get stops, they got out in transition. He looked like last season Luka very, very quickly. He had a really nice – you don't really see this from Luka a lot. He had a pull-up 3 in transition that wasn't a step back. Like he literally like caught the ball on the break and like stepped into a 3. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like usually in transition, he'll still find a way to shoot a step back. Like you don't see him walk into 3s in transition a lot. And he got that, right. And that looked really nice. I think he made 9 buckets in the first half. I think he had 25 points. 5 of those 9 were 3s. So he made his 3s. Like that was the big difference. Like I don't think he wasn't amazing at the paint, but he was amazing from 3. He was engaged offensively after the kind of really sloppy, first 4 minutes. And then from there, they're off the races. Looked like he was having fun. And he just made shots. Like I don't know if there was something different in the process of tonight other than the fact that they were able to secure defensive rebounds to get in transition. Like I know Orlando had 13 offensive rebounds and that looks like a lot, but again, they missed 62 shots. They missed 32 shots alone in the first half and had 6 offensive rebounds. Like considering that how many shots the Magic missed, the fact that they had 13 offensive rebounds is actually kind of impressive. And I thought Luka did a good job getting the ball up in transition. And I think once they got out of the half-court game, which to be fair, Orlando's half-court defense is pretty good, Luka was just killing it in transition with his transition reads. And I think he got some good 3s in transition as well. And I think that just, they got to play faster. And they haven't really played fast all season. And I think that's been because of some of their issues rebounding the ball and some of that and rebounding and fouling. Like the games have just been a little bit of a slog. They only fouled 22 times tonight and they dominated the glass, and lo and behold, they get 19 fast break points. And I think that also tied into how great Luka looked, and he was great. He was much better game from the Houston game.
A lot of things that I would want to take away from that I find interesting. First of all, heading into last season, I think one of the things everybody was really concerned about is whether Luka would ever want to play fast. And one of the things I found interesting from from Tim McMahon's story about the Mavericks heading into this year, where he talked about how Kidd kind of had to ask Luka to play fast
last season, right?
Last season, and he said yes. And it's just so different. Obviously, it helps that they have the horses to play fast, which is because like a lot of the kick ahead passes are to people not named Dwight Powell. So if you trust Gafford and Lively to go catch the equivalent of like a go ball in football, it's nice to see. The second thing that I'm thinking of was in practice yesterday morning. Mike Curtis of the Dallas Morning News got a quote from Jason Kidd that basically talked about their defensive shortcomings. It was talking about saying a little bit of what we were talking about, how the Mavericks were just getting crushed on their first. They're getting put into rotation immediately, which just fucked everything else up. Did you see anything in that first half where the Mavericks cleaned any of that up, or does Orlando just doesn't have the horses to threaten?
Orlando doesn't have the horses to threaten them, but they did. I mean, they did their job, but it was a much easier job. Like it's much easier to stay in front of Jalen Suggs and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope than maybe like Jalen Green, or who were they playing?
Right,
their other loss, Phoenix, like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. But they can only play who's in front of them, and they did what they were supposed to do against this game. Like they didn't let those guys get easy shots, to their credit. Like they didn't. There could be a proclivity to be like, okay, we've got this. Let's not. They didn't let Jalen Suggs get by them. They which would have just compromised things even more. They didn't let Caldwell Pope or who else? Gary Harris. I mean, again, not like Anthony Black. Again, I'm saying all these names. I'm like, yeah, these guys.
It's so interesting because it's like you put one guy, right? You put the one guy, in their case, it's Paulo Banchero. But if you were to put, I don't know, a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, a Luka Doncic, like a ball dominant guard that could attack,
everything else falls into place. Yeah,
they've got pieces. Like I'm an Anthony Black super fan, but it's just watching some of the length they threw out on the court. Like Jonathan Isaac is enormous, man. Like Luka took 2 shots over him later in the game just to see if he could make them, and he didn't. But it's like when you watch a guy like that guarding Luka, it's just like, man, that guy is something else. What else did I want to ask you? I think there's probably plenty of stuff, but looking at the time here, we're already kind of near the halfway point. Anybody hanging out, new to the show, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Josh and I talk after every game. We more often than not host a secondary live show. I'm going to guess there's not much appetite for that tonight, just because this was such a blowout. There's not much to talk about. We'll probably save that for tomorrow night for the late game where the Mavericks play the Pacers. But yeah, join us, hang out with us here after the game. If you're listening on, a typical podcast stream, Apple, Google, or Spotify, please consider leaving a review. Always appreciate that sort of thing. If you're watching the video a little later, do me a favor and leave an actual comment. The likes during the stream, we always like that. I think it helps. But go ahead and leave comments and those sorts of things. I enjoy reading them, even the ones that get mad at me. We have a good time. Let me see here. I think now I'm going to insert some audio ads for Josh and I, and then we will kind of close out the pod here. Okay, we are back. What else should we talk about on this? You had the privilege of writing the recap tonight, and I'm not ready yet.
No, it's all good. I think we hit the main points, which is they secured their defensive possessions, which allowed them to play faster. They had the 19-12 edge in fast break points. It was 19-2 at halftime in fast break points, which just kind of sums up the game. They didn't really need to push the gas pedal too hard in the second half. Obviously, we talked about Luka waking up, having a great game from start to finish, which I really think might be the first time he's done that all season.
This season, yeah, definitely is.
Game. Yeah. And then the other thing we haven't talked, I guess the only thing we didn't hit about, I guess it's twofold. One, that they were passing the ball much better tonight, and that helps when you're in transition, and even when you're even if it's not a pure fast break point, like just being able to push the ball up the floor off a missed basket and getting the defense unset, even if it does settle into a half court possession, that's just such a big deal compared to taking the ball out of your own basket or inbounding the ball from a dead ball possession. And getting Orlando moving a little bit, keeping them on their heels, I think made a big difference. And the Mavericks had 25 assists on 42 made baskets, which is a very, very good number. I think they had 5 guys that had at least 2 assists or more. Najee Marshall had 5 assists off the bench.
He was great, man. That
he was
half
awesome.
court alley-oop
was
nuts.
Yeah, off the steal. He had a very funny game. He had 4 points, but 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Like just kind of stuffed the box score. And you could kind of see the vision with him because I've definitely seen, because I was very much out there when they kind of swapped Najee for Derrick Jones Jr. And I put myself out there and was like, I think Najee is a better player than Derrick Jones Jr. like overall. And there was definitely, I got some pushback to that for sure. And this is the game that like kind of shows the vision, where it's just like, when you see how the Mavericks struggled at times against the Boston Celtics, and even outside of that, like when they struggled offensively, it was because teams were like daring Luka and Kyrie to play one-on-one. And a way to beat that is you just need more guys that can do stuff.
That's right.
Hands. And it's not like they need guys that can run pick and roll or like run offense. They just need guys that can attack one-on-one or can attack floor space, like the open space. And Najee's great at that. And I think he's got a good feel for the game in that regard. Like you're not gonna give this dude the ball and clear out and let him run your offense for 5 minutes. Like he's not that kind of guy. And you don't need that kind of guy around your stars, but you just need more guys that when they get past the ball, or if they pick up the ball in transition off a steal or a rebound, that they're not like, oh shit, like looking for Luka or Kyrie to pass the ball up to. They can push the ball forward like he did on that great alley-oop, that half-court alley-oop, and then he had a couple other nice plays as well. So I thought that was big. I think they scored. Yeah, they had 52 points in the paint. Gafford and Lively were both incredible. Gafford had 18 points in 20 minutes, and Lively had 11 points in 20 minutes. So I thought the Mavericks did a good job. Those 2 bigs ran the floor very well. They beat up on a smaller Orlando front line because Wendell Carter Jr. only played 9
and
minutes.
Goga was out too, and Banchero's out. Like
they had no bigs.
If the I don't want to be too ridiculous here, but if the Mavericks didn't win by double digits, there were going to be questions that came out of this game.
No, absolutely. This needed to be the win that it was. Like if they would, even if they would have like won by like 5, there would have been, you've been like, wait, what's going on?
Right.
Like they needed to kind of flex their muscles. Clay, I thought, had an interesting game. He had 9 points on 10 shots. He didn't shoot well, but man, teams are sticking to him like glue. And I think you're seeing, when the Mavericks, you watch it and they get it in that offensive rut where they just get a little ball watchy and they just don't move a lot. And they do get a little, it happens with this team. But then Clay's ability to just draw defenders, so tight to him. He had 4 assists. And his passing, he should have had 5. He had a really nice pass to Lively, who got hacked at the rim and wasn't able to finish because he literally got hacked. He didn't even have a chance of finishing. Like he was great at manipulating the space that was being presented to him because the Orlando defense was so tight on him. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he shot 4-10. He was 1 of 5 from 3, and you're kind of like, what's going on? But the 4 assists and keeping things moving, he was a plus 19 in his 29 minutes. Like I thought that was great. And I think that's just a dimension they've never had, because the only other volume movement shooter they've had is Tim Hardaway Jr. And then like, say what you will about Tim, good or bad, he was not a ball mover. No. Like Clay is a willing passer for someone that likes to get shots up as a shooter. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes a difference.
He had one. It was a simple play, simple read. Lively cut to the basket from kind of right outside the left wing.
Yeah.
After Clay had pump faked. And it's just, that's the kind of pass that Hardaway doesn't make. Right. It's a simple play, but you like to see the simple play. And one of the things I'm just enjoying as I'm thinking about this team when the offense comes together a little more is the variations of guys that seem to know what pass to make. Marshall's assists they're good. They're real. Obviously, every assist is real, but they're not, I'm making the easy read plays. Like they're basketball plays. And it's nice to see because it's, we've had so much of like years of just like Luka and then a little bit of Brunson. But candidly, Brunson's role was to score more. So it's not like he was a big time passer. So it's just seeing some of this stuff is working out in a way that I'm enjoying. When it works, I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but I saw something. The Luka's fourth quarter, he was, I think, 3 of 4 from 3 against the Rockets, right?
Right.
Before that, he had been in the previous 11 quarters. So 2 games plus the 3 quarters of the Rockets game, he was 2 of 20. And so it's you don't want to always be critical of Luka, but it's just so much of what the offense does like starts and ends with him, where if he's taking and making like shots that you're happy with, then everything else seems to roll downhill. And even when he's not on the floor, the offense seems to be a little bit better.
They've got more dynamic players. Like that's just a fact, right? Mm-hmm. Compared to where they've been even last year and definitely the years before last year.
Yeah.
You could kind of see the vision of like, because it's been pretty clear since the Nico regime and Cuban took a step back, like you could see the vision of what they've been wanting to do. Like it's a total course correction from what we saw Luka, the Donnie Nelson years, the first couple years, the 2020, 2021, and even 2022, where like that vision was, okay, Luka is amazing. Let's maximize Luka, give him the ball as much as possible, and then try to fill in the gaps with, cost-controlled role players that Luka can make look brilliant and just let Luka do everything. And that makes sense kind of on paper. Why spend 20 million on a player we could spend 8 and get like 75% of the same production? That was kind of what their driving point was, like, let's save on the margins because Luka's so good and just let Luka do everything. Well, like you can't win a title like with your best player having like a 38 usage because no one else on the team knows how to dribble or pass. Like you can't, like, and not everyone else on your roster can be second round picks and undrafted free agents.
Yep.
Like they've increased the talent level of the roster dramatically since Nico's come here. And you could tell that they're purposeful with these moves that they're making. They're all fitting into a mold. Like they feel connected in a way and cohesive in a way that this isn't an accident. Like they identified what was going wrong, where they're like, we cannot skimp on the margins. We need the role players to actually be more than just standstill ball watchers. And I think you're kind of seeing the result where the Mavericks are 4-2. And I think me and you would argue like they got a lot to work on, but they're 4-2 and not 2-4. Where like if this roster, like if this was the 2021 or 2020 or maybe 2022 roster, I don't think they can play the way they've played in certain aspects through 6 games and be 4-2. Like they would be 1-5 or whatever, 3-3. So like I don't know. It's a weird spot where like they have a lot more to work on, but they're also 4-2, and the fact that they can win games while they still figure some stuff out is good. They just got to figure it out.
Yep. I enjoyed Derek Lively having a strong defensive rebounding performance, obviously kind of against a weak, depleted front line, but still 7 defensive boards in 20 minutes is nice. Mm-hmm. Honestly, through their wins, I really, and it stands out more than their losses, but I think the Lively's, they seem to really go how Lively goes. Obviously, you talk a lot about Luka, but in terms of if Lively is playing well, and again, I think that's directly tied to Luka playing well, everything seems to fall into place for the Mavericks. I like that. Somebody in the chat way earlier mentioned this is a really good Gafford game. Yes, it was. Yep. I don't know.
Both of those guys are good. They win, right? Like if you look at the 2 losses, the Houston game, they were both Gafford and Lively were non-factors, and then the loss against the Suns, both of those, those were the 2 worst games Lively and Gafford have each played. Were both the losses, and they were both like together. Like, I think you're onto something. How Lively and Gafford goes, I think, is a good barometer for how well this team's playing.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can argue a lot of different things play into that. On defense, is if the perimeter guys aren't hosing them, and on offense is Luka and anybody else getting easy shots for these guys.
Yeah. Can they stay on the floor?
That's right.
Foul trouble stuff.
That's right. This my kind of last final shot is it's never going to be a go-to move because the way the Mavericks are designed, Lively doesn't need to do this shit. And I think, post moves for centers, it's not 1980 anymore. That said, Lively's hook is awesome. And I just like watching him do it.
I know.
It's fun.
I like when he gets more chances. They still, like when I say they still need to figure some stuff out, like, again, they opened the first quarter and they didn't run like any dribble handoff with their centers. And I'm just like, guys, I think that's the cheat code to this season. I don't know why you don't want to do it. Like, I don't, right. It's like you're playing the game with one arm tied behind your back. Like it works. It works so much. I posted a couple days ago, I think before or after them, I can't remember when, a couple days ago, like Luka's leading the league in points per possession off handoff plays. Like, just do it. I don't know why they're being so stubborn about it. I know it's a long regular season, so like in 20 games, this might be stupid, but like that's just something that they can work on. I like seeing Lively do, like, we talk about every time he does something that we're like, oh, okay, and like we just like watching him play and having opportunities to do it.
Yep, it's great stuff, man. Okay, so you and I'll be back. The Mavericks play 8:45 p.m. local time tomorrow night for reasons that have been explained to me, and the explanation is garbage, and I don't like it. All 30 teams play tomorrow. No teams play on election night because everyone just really wants to be super excited and glued to their televisions watching. Anyhow, so we will be back and we'll stay up late on Monday night. And then the Mavericks have a game Wednesday night. Then the Mavericks have a game Friday. Then the Mavericks have a game. No, I'm sorry. They go. Am I getting my days all messed up? Let me go look at the Mavericks schedule because they play a lot is what I was getting at. Let's see here. They play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Yeah, when you really look at what the Mavericks are doing here, they play every other day up until a back-to-back on the 16th and 17th of the month. And like this November is the grindiest month. I remember this now when we were looking at it. They play just a ton of basketball. So does everybody. But there were points last year, and I wonder if anyone will remember this, where we were having like 4 and 5 day gaps between games to start the season. Do you remember this?
I do remember this.
And we're just like, what the shit are we doing? How can we get into a flow?
Yeah.
And now it's just like the Mavericks are playing every other game, every other night. They're,
I don't know how it works. I don't know how the schedule stuff works. I really don't.
The Mavericks are getting a lot of their back-to-backs out of the way, where they have one today, tomorrow. They have another back-to-back.
They already did one.
Yes. And then they have another on the 16th and 17th. Then they have one on the 24th, 25th, and then the 30th and December 1st. So it's like, they're front loading a lot of the Mavericks' difficult stuff, at least in terms of schedule. And then the games, as you go through the season, you see that they actually have a lot of their really tougher games backloaded into the kind of February, March area, which is dicey. It's tough. So everybody be ready to rock with us, because that means we're recording every other day, which I actually like. I could do. It's the back-to-backs are the brutal shit. Like the one game, and that part's kind of fun.
Back-to-back and West Coast games. That's what we hate.
Yeah. And so Josh and I'll be back tomorrow night. I'll do a Mavs party or group therapy tomorrow night, but there's, we only got like 6 or 7 people in the chat right now that are active. Lower, I messed up and didn't broadcast to Twitter, so we don't have as many people. So we're going to hang up and take our answers off the air. We will see everybody tomorrow night. Thanks so much, and go Mavs.